Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Thursday, the 25th day of August 2022. Well, I hope you're all having a good week. My oldest son turned, let's see, we're in 2022, so he turned 42 yesterday. So happy birthday to him. I already said happy birthday to him yesterday, but I'll do it again. And let's see. If this is your first time here, welcome. I appreciate you coming by, and I hope you'll click subscribe and join our little tarot and rune family. And for those of you that are back, thank you so much. And those of you who are back, you know that I'm going to start with the esoteric influences for today. Now that comes from the post I post on actually Saturday nights over on the blog. I also I posted over on Patreon as well. And it basically talks about the different modalities I use. I use numerology for the day. I use an Elder Futhark rune, a Geomancy rune, the planet that governs, and also the human design chart for that particular day. And together I bring it all together in a just an interpretation that hopefully can give you some insight as to what might be coming up and how you might deal with it. But so for today, we have a 7 numerology for the 25th day of August. I'm not doing the whole August, being the 8th month, the 25th day, and 2022. I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm just use the day itself. So balance, basically, observation. It can also refer to legalities. Think the scales when you think of the 7, and think of things coming to a rest before you make decisions, understanding the whole picture, before you do. Vunyo is the Elder Futhark rune for the esoteric influences today, fellowship and joy. Tristitia, on the other hand, the below side of things for the Geomancy rune. Now that's a level of sadness and grief that may become too much. It may sometimes even be ego driven. And also Jupiter's in Aries. So moving from feelings of loss and grief to a more joyful presence comes from viewing those experiences from a spiritual perspective. It takes observing the experience from a place outside the reactive self, which can be difficult to achieve when in the middle of the experience itself. But as you continue to search for higher spiritual truth, you may become so focused on that process that you avoid your responsibilities, and a little restructuring of your time may be necessary today. You feel empowered by maintaining harmony with others, and less so when you feel that others are either forcing their beliefs on you or trying to undermine your values. But if understanding the motivations of others is not possible, you may be forced to temporarily let go of your current approach for one that is less collaborative, at least for today. So let's set this over here to the other side, and we'll refer to it. Sometimes when I draw the runes for the reading, I end up drawing the same as what I have. At least one of them at least could be the same. So let's go ahead and take the the Elder Futhark rune. The runes I do, the Elder Futhark and the Geomancy rune, those reflect the as above, so below side of things, with the Elder Futhark rune being the higher self aspect of things, and then the Geomancy rune being the ego side of things. And they sort of set the tone for the reading, with the cards then sort of, I guess, providing the details maybe. But sometimes, they also, sometimes I end up having to reinterpret the runes as well. Just depends on what I draw. So, because these things can mean a lot of different stuff. So here we have Hagalaz for today. Now, Hagalaz is thought to be the witch rune. It's transformation within a fixed framework. It's one of the Norn runes. It's the Norn rune of the past, if you will. So it basically gathers up all of the stuff that you want to transform, and it allows you to do that without essentially throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I don't know if you're familiar with that expression, but maybe I'm dating myself. But it's just the idea that you don't have to lose everything when you're transforming things. You can still leave the basic structure of your life there. You don't have to upend the whole thing just because maybe you change a little bit of perception. So that's the higher self aspect of the reading right here is Hagalaz. It can mean hail. It can mean just the idea of having some semblance of order, after you've done what you've needed to do. One of the reasons they call it the witch rune is because that's essentially what witchcraft is. You're transforming things energetically in a way that still leaves the structure there. So let's take a look at the Geomancy rune. Oh, well, this one's easy. We have Vaya, which is new path, which is going to align very well with Hagalaz. Now, Vaya is its complement is populous, which would be 2 dots all the way down. This is an active influence, whereas populous would be a passive influence. So populous would be a follower, and this is moving forward with intention. This is your path that you're taking. So perhaps there's going to be some transformation today that then opens up a new path for you to take, or enables you to take a new path. But we'll see. We'll see what the cards have to say. Now, I've spent a whole bunch of time, longer today than I usually do. I just got to shuffling and I didn't stop. So, but I'll just do a little bit more. And then we'll cut the deck and we'll take the cards from the bottom half of the deck. And if we add any more, then I'll take them from the top half. How about that? So let's take the first 3 cards. Well, I've got 1 card from the Major Arcana and 2 cards from the Suit of Wands, and both are court cards. One's a page and one's a king. I'm going to leave them where they are. I'm not going to move them around. I've got the Lovers last. That's the Major Arcana card. Because I think that when you see the 2 court cards together, maybe this is talking about the people on the cards. So let's look at them first. We have the king and we have the page. Now, right away, what do you see? You see that they're not looking at one another. So are they specifically not talking to one another? Is one focused on the past while one is focused on the future? We have to read these cards together, not just separately. And then we end up with the Lovers. So maybe we find a different balance between all of that. But let's take a look at the king first. The King of Wands is going to be an authority figure, an older man. He's knowledgeable. He's a wise counselor. Now, he can be authoritarian with wands, because wands is the fire element. He can also be cruel or bigoted, but he's a warrior. He could also be a wise mentor, a wise counselor. When he's trying to give you advice about things, he's holding a staff in one hand, which depicts wands. You see his little elemental down here, the salamander, which you see up here possibly in the Ouroboros fashion. And you see a lion here and one here, all depicting wands, all depicting the fire element. The fire element is very passionate. It's the spark of life. It's creativity. It can be authority. It's very Mars energy like, but sometimes Mars can be out of control. So, it just kind of depends on how you want to see it. But the interesting part about this in terms of directionality, he's looking toward the past. So he's either going to be bringing that into the equation or not, but we'll see. Now, the Page of Wands on the other end of the spectrum with the court. Here you have a younger person, Pages are often about the news they bring. So possibly with the Page of Wands, you could be looking at new opportunities. However, when you see the three pyramids in the background, we think Holy Land, and so we think a spiritual quest or a spiritual journey. And the new opportunities might be a way of seeing things from a spiritual perspective. So it's possible the transition with Hagalas today is that you're moving from a more focus on the past to one that's more about opportunities for the future. Maybe something that involves a higher perspective, if you will, or something spiritual in nature itself, but at least you're coming from a higher perspective as you take a new path with Vaya. But somehow or another now, also with the Page of Wands, you're talking about transformation, present moment awareness. That's another one. If you're familiar with Eckhart Tolle, he talks a lot about remaining in present moment awareness. Transformation, a seeker, a student. So you're talking again about, with the pages, you're talking about undeveloped potential. And so perhaps with the king, you're letting go of things that no longer serve you, having the inner authority to do that, and then to move on, to transform all of that into some type of new opportunity. Maybe instead of letting go, maybe what you're doing is you're taking the wisdom then of the past instead of letting it go. Or letting go of any structure maybe that you have maybe you've been stuck in something, one type of perception. The bigoted aspect of the King of Wands could be stuck in that type of the isms of life that leave you in a place where you're not really seeing the whole picture. You're not really understanding the truth of things. You're seeing the other instead of the other side of self, perhaps. So maybe there's a little bit of that allows you then to transform and move on into the future today. But if not, then maybe what the Page of Wands is taking with him, given that they're both holding, we'll go this way, they're both holding the same sort of staff. It'd be interesting if it was this way, because then the page would be benefiting from the wisdom of the king. But that doesn't mean that they're not going, that the page isn't going to benefit from the wisdom, but he's taking that wisdom and he's moving it on into the future. He's using what he knows to then be able to maybe be a little more selective of the opportunities that are coming his way. So don't give up on what you have and what you've learned. Use that then to benefit the undeveloped potential of something new happening. And then we come to the Lovers. Now, the Lover's card is an interesting card. We see above here the sun's rays. That's really the rays of creation, or the rays of the Creator. Here we have the angel above. And the angel has, it looks like in amongst the angel's hair, there's almost a wreath of integration between the leaves of an oak tree and possibly the leaves of the apple tree, which is kind of part of what the Lovers is really about integration. You see some darker clouds here, so it's almost like the angel is rising up out of the unknown. We see two people here, basically Adam and Eve, if you will. You see Adam with his little oak leaf tail, and you see the oak leaves here on the oak tree. You see here the apple tree behind Eve, of course, with the serpent of knowledge, the tree of knowledge. But here, but check where the focus is. He is focused on her, while she is focused on spirit. She's focused on the angel. So her focus, her vision is still spirit bound. It's not ego bound, where his is definitely ego bound. And it's an interesting deal here with the mountain. The mountain actually bends toward her, bends toward truth, bends toward spirit, bends toward knowledge. So it's almost as if he's waiting. The masculine side of self is waiting for the feminine side of self, the projective waiting for the receptive, to kind of clue him in as to where he needs to go. So if you look at this, the receptive side of self is the void from which creation comes. He's really wanted, the balance is more heavily weighted on the female side, isn't it? On the receptive side. So instead of Eve being thought of as the weaker of the two, in truth, she's the stronger of the two. So I know that doesn't necessarily fit with how people see that, but that's how I see it. Anyway, a little more goddess presence in our life wouldn't hurt, don't you think? But with the lovers now, this can either be about balance or duality or balancing polarity within, or it could mean balancing something that is maybe external. So it depends on the reading, though. Here, though, I think it's about the internal balance. And I really think that there has to be a balance when you're taking what you know from that you've learned and your inner wisdom, your inner authority, and then applying it to how you're going to proceed on into the future. Both are very active principles with the suit of wands. We may take one more card here because we're doing well on time. And we'll take it from the top half of the deck. But again, you've got the same kind of struggle here, though, whether or not you're going to take that leap of faith, which might be considered a more receptive thing to do, allowing spirit to guide that process. There could be that involved with the Page of Wands. Especially in terms of being a seeker or a student, allowing transformation to come in, present moment awareness, all of that could be on the receptive side of self. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I always take the 13th one. I was born on the 13th. Here we have the Suit of Swords. It's the air element. It's the 8. We see a woman bound and blindfolded. She's in kind of wet, soppy sand, isn't she? But you can still see the water there. So there's some water element involved here. She's got to turn her back to her perceptions. You can either look at it that way or she's bound by perception. Now, I would say that that's going to probably modify the King of Wands a little bit. To where at some point she's going to have to find some different balance with the 7 numerology here today. That may be part of that. But she has to have the inner strength to do that. But she feels surrounded by perceptions that are no longer serving her, maybe, and she's got to let go of some of that. And at that point, then she can move on into seeking new opportunities and new experiences from a higher perspective. She's basically, with being blindfolded, this is a focus on ego. When you see them downward, when you see the tip turned upward, that's a focus on spirit. But here we have a focus on ego, and there's just too much of it. Too much ego is driving her perceptions, and she's got to get out of it. That may be what keeps her stuck. If there's a certain amount of stuckness to the King of Wands, if it's about how she sees the world, how she sees, again, with the King of Wands, there's the element of being cruel and bigoted. That's stuck perception. That's stuck, again, in the isms of things. And maybe she's discovering the same thing, and she has to have the internal strength to, and that's with the 8 numerology, that strength to then let go of all of that, to not be influenced by it so much, and to come to a more realistic thing. Now, that's a very, to go into the void here, being bound the way she is, in a sense, she's going into the void, which would be the feminine side of self in terms of polarity. So I really think with Hagalaz being the Elder Futhark rune today, I have to wonder if this is really stressing that whatever you need to do to move on to undeveloped potential with new opportunities, some of that's going to have involve some inner dialogue where you're considering how you see things. And if it's purely fear-based, which ego can be likened with fear-based perception, then you've got to let go of that. If you don't, then you can't move on. Maybe you have a belief system that has developed over time, maybe in response to what you see around you or the people that you have around you. And it's influencing how you see things. The problem is it could be very reactive and not so much living in the present moment awareness that we need to live in here today. Staying there, we don't allow the past to influence in a way that prevents us from moving on. And because sometimes that fear-based belief system, it keeps you from maybe going on, maybe deciding you're going to go take maybe go to college or choose a different job or make some different choices for yourself that can then yield some better results in your life. Maybe lucrative, maybe more lucrative, maybe it's material, because the 8 is also signifying material recognition and approval. So maybe you're in a position where you have to make a decision. Do I need to go and maybe get some more training so that I can go for something else, try for another position in the company I work for, or maybe to go and seek another job, that could be out there for you, but maybe you need to have some additional training to do that. So that would be moving outside the comfort zone that the King of Wands has created for himself. You're dealing with the inner dialogue that keeps you from moving into something new and exciting. And then once you do that, then you can move forward, seeing the bigger picture that's in front of you and seeing how that can actually empower you to do better things for yourself. And again, you're really talking about the inner polarity of finding a better balance. And again, the balance is clearly spirit-based. It's more heavily weighted there. Instead of letting the ego side of self, which tends to correspond with the masculine side of self. And I'm not referring to gender here, okay? Although the Lover's card this can have to do with a relationship, right? But I don't think so today. I think today it's really about that inner authority, and where does that come from? Does it come from the perceptions you have that are more reactive, that are more ego-based, maybe more fear-based, or are they coming from a higher awareness that that Hagalaz and the Lovers are really describing here? So I think that's, again, if that's what's going on for you today, then I encourage you to kind of go within and turn off the noise of your own thought processes, the thought forms you create. Because so much of that manifests into behavior and the choices that we have and the belief structures that foster all of it. And if any of that is holding you back from seeing something new and exciting for yourself, then you've really got to let go of the masculine side of self, the ego side of self, the projective one that will go and do or maybe stay fixated, because that also takes a lot of masculine side of self energy, and go into the feminine side of self, go into that void and figure out just exactly what it is you want. What is it? What are you really looking forward to? What are you going to do for yourself and for your family? Maybe your family might be involved as well. But the bottom line is so much of the time we're afraid to move forward because we're dealing with fear-based issues. We're dealing with fear-based belief structures. And if we do that, then we really limit what we can do in life. So again, turn off the noise of the thought forms you've created and all the beliefs you've got, and see what you can, with a little bit of greater understanding, how are you going to actually manifest something new for yourself today? Take that new path with Vaya and transform your life with Hagalaz. So, okay, I think that does it. I don't think we need another card. Hopefully this is not gonna, my screen was jumping around again. I'm not really sure why that's happening. I've rebooted my computer once, and so I'm not really sure why that's going on. Hopefully it will process out. I said this in the last ones. I was having issues with it there. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I'll see what I can do with the computer. Maybe I've got too much open. I don't know. And the memory's not working right. I don't know. But we'll see. I'll try to figure that out before Monday's reading again. But otherwise, hang in there. You'll see the whole thing anyway, eventually. It might stutter a little bit though. So anyhow, thanks for watching. And again, I hope you'll click subscribe and come back on Monday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Have a wonderful weekend and be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.